Hey everyone, welcome to Clicky Bezel. This is Chris. Today we're going to be going to the WindUp watch fair. There's about 50 brands over there that we counted. Unfortunately, we can't look at all of them today, so we created a little challenge for ourselves to look at a list of brands that we want to look at within 1 hour. So that's about 5 minutes per brand that I get to see, and let's see what we get to see within that hour. I'm wondering if I'm going to walk out with a watch today. Maybe, maybe not. I've seen a fair amount of Christopher Ward's. One watch that really stood out to me in particular, probably their C60 concept model, which I believe has their own in-house caliber, which is pretty cool. Like when you wind up their watch, you can kind of see the spring coiling up in that system, and I thought that was pretty cool. And I know it's been out for a while, but it was probably the C63 GMT, the one that kind of looks like an Explorer 2, or in this case, a Tudor Black Bay Pro. And it's kind of cool because it almost shares the same diameter, 39mm diameter, such as the Tudor Black Bay Pro. I can see this being a really great alternative to either the Rolex Explorer 2 or even Tudor Black Bay Pro. Now, if you're not familiar with Brew, they're also a micro brand, and they're meshing their two loves, which is espresso machines and their love for watches. And I think that's pretty cool. I'm a big espresso lover myself, so of course I gravitated towards their chronographs, and they call this their Espresso Retrograph, which is a really nice PVD coated rose gold on their case. It was just like a very monotone watch, which I think it would be pretty cool. I think it would probably work out with this outfit. And it is housing, I believe, a Seiko Mecha Quartz. There's nothing wrong with the hybrid movement. I think it's actually a smart move for the brand. It keeps costs down. I think it's around $375 you can pick this up for. So, I mean, if you're a big espresso lover, I think this is a great buy to pick up, especially for $375. There was only one watch that I wanted to see from G-Shock. That is, of course, that $4,000 titanium version of the DW5600 watch we all know. To be honest, I was underwhelmed with this. I mean, for $4,000, you can buy a lot of good watches. I mean, in my case, I would probably take that $4,000 and, pop it in for a new Tudor Black Bay Pro. But, I guess if you're a die-hard fan of Casio and you gotta have every single piece in the lineup, I can see this being a pretty cool pickup, I guess. No one's really using these watches to the test, especially it being, a $4,000 upgraded version of a watch that is, easily $40 to $60 depending on where you get it. For me, I mean, it was cool to see in the flesh, but hard pass on that for me. Junghans. I mean, there was two that really stood out to me. Of course, the max bills are amazing. One highlight was probably their roll timer, which is pretty well done. I mean, it's a lot like their other watches. It's purely dial on there, and it's very nicely laid out. Sticking to traditional Bauhaus design architecture, which is really lovely to look at. I think probably the best standout for me was their solar quartz versions of the max bill. I think it was pretty cool. I was looking at the case back and I didn't realize that it was a radio controlled ones, because I was playing around with the crown and the hand started moving around, and I thought that was a pretty slick move. For the price point, you're paying, I believe it was around $1,000 for that. It adds that extra bit of functionality to the watch, so it does have some practical applications if you're a traveler. Now moving on to Laco. Now Laco holds a really special place in my heart. It was probably the first serious watch that got me into this hobby, and it was good to see their whole lineup in front of my face. And I was always curious on what their Frankfurt GMT option was like. It is a newer watch for the brand, so it isn't part of their heritage pieces that we're all used to. And it was nice to have on the wrist, but after handling it for a little while, it wasn't really for me. And when I'm thinking of Laco, I'm really thinking about their pilot watches. I haven't been keeping up with the brand, so it was pretty cool to see their Pro Flieger models over there. And to my surprise, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. It's 200-meter water resistance, which is pretty cool. You can bring it underwater if you want. The wearability of those watches really impressed me. You're getting curved lugs, so it hugs the wrist a little bit more. And it also comes in smaller diameter options. That's probably a good option if your wrist is a little bit smaller, or if you're looking for a more wearable option from Laco. Oris. There's only one watch that I really wanted to see from Oris, and it was that Pro Pilot X. It seems to be sold out everywhere. The 3 that they had on the floor that day were the only 3 in California. I was there for the past 3 days, and from the time that I was there, none of them sold, and that kind of concerned me. Is that kind of a bad sign from people saying that, they're not really into it, or maybe it's a tad too expensive? The thing is, it is a premium material. It is made out of titanium, and it is rocking their in-house caliber with the Cali Bear on the back, which is really cool. And I think, in my opinion, yes, it is a tad too rich. You kind of have to remember of all the research and development that went into creating this new caliber for the brand. So I think it's a matter of retraining your mind on what Oris is and what they're offering. Maybe as they offer more watches with their in-house caliber, perhaps we'll see more people's interest in these watches. I've never seen any fairer watch in person. And I gotta say, they are very handsome, especially their chronographs with all the colors. Lovely pieces, but maybe the size is a bit large for what I'm looking for in a chronograph. They are pretty fair in thickness. Unfortunately, I didn't really connect with it, so I kind of moved on since I was running out of time. Vertex, another brand that I have never seen in the flesh, and I gotta say, like, their military-inspired watches is pretty tasty. They had the original M100 from, I believe, the year 1917, which was amazing. Like, they actually had it all intact, everything was working. It was a very beautiful vintage piece, and the brand did an updated version of this for the world of modern watches. It was very nicely done, but there's something about those vintage watches that just have a charm to them that can't really be translated once you make a modern version of this watch. And if more brands can make a one-to-one original case and dial design, I think more watch enthusiasts would be into that than a modern interpretation of what that vintage model was. Very cool. I mean, all their things are almost one-to-one, from the dial to even the case dimensions. I mean, it's pretty impressive, and their Super Antarctic was one of their newer releases, and I gotta say, it's a pretty handsome watch. It's another brand to really ponder on if you're into this vintage aesthetic vibe. I've never heard of this brand before prior to coming to the show, but I did a little digging on some of the brands before stopping by, and this was the only Japanese brand that was at the show. And I have to say, it was the highlight brand for the entire show for me. And I really think it has to do something, again, with the Japanese philosophy of things. Now, I originally came there for the Divido model, and it's very unique. It kind of gives off a vintage aesthetic on the lugs, but done in a more brutal, modern way. But there was something about the Horizon model that really took my attention. And I think it really had to do something with their design philosophy that went behind this. On the edge of the case, there is this little divot in there with brushing and polished details on the side of it, saying that it resembles that of a Japanese katana. And I think that was a really cool thing. And just feeling it, it does feel a bit like the edge of a sword. You can see it's called the Horizon because of the beautiful curve that goes along the crystal. Because of this, the whole entire watch actually fits very well on the wrist. It's very comfortable. And on that bracelet, it was a lot more impressive than I thought it would be. I thought it would be kind of sharp and uncomfortable to wear, but really it molded to the wrist so ergonomically. And I just instantly fell in love with that watch. So most of my time was actually spent at the Minase booth. And, I asked all these questions on, how to even purchase these watches because they don't have any retailer inside of the US. So I don't know, I got their contact information just in case. I think I will be buying this watch in the future. They don't produce their own in-house calibers, but you're paying for the Japanese design and their philosophy behind it. It's one of those watches where you kind of have to spend a little bit more time with it, but for me, it's something to really ponder about. That basically sums up my thoughts about this watch show. It was a great watch show. Thank you so much, Warren and Wound, for holding this event. And I think for me, the winner is Minase. I am probably gonna have to contact Minase to gather a little bit more information on this brand, maybe even having them send me a watch to review. I don't know, that'd be amazing, because I just want to spend a little bit more time with that watch to really get a sense of what this Horizon is all about. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching. If you guys like this video, please do consider subscribing. And also, if you check the link in the description below, you'll find that you can buy me a coffee. So if you guys want to support the channel a little bit, I do love coffee. And if you want to, please do consider buying me a coffee as well.